Beteiligungsgesellschaft, GmbH. Otto Görner was managing director of the holding company, among whose many corporate assets was the security firm. Schmidt's supervisor was in charge of security for what in America would be called the corporate headquarters of Gossinger Beteiligungsgesellschaft, GmbH, in Fulda, another small Hessian city about 100 kilometers from Marburg an der Lahn. The supervisor had arrived at Schmidt's home an hour and a half before and had come right to the point. "Herr Görner wants to go to Marburg," he had announced at Schmidt's door, "and you're going to drive him." He had then made two gestures, one toward the street where a security car was parked behind the SL 600, and one by putting his thumb to his lips. Schmidt immediately understood both gestures. He was to drive Herr Görner to Marburg in the SL 600, and the reason he was going to do so was that Herr Görner, who usually drove himself in a 6-liter V12-engined Jaguar XJ Vandenplas, had been imbibing spirits. Görner was fond of saying he never got behind the wheel of a car if at any time in the preceding 8 hours he had so much as sniffed a cork. The Mercedes was Frau Görner's car. No one drove Otto Görner's Jag but Otto Görner. Görner's physical appearance was that of a stereotypical Bavarian. He visually seemed to radiate Gemütlichkeit. He was, in fact, a Hessian. And what he really radiated, even when he had not been drinking, was the antithesis of Gemütlichkeit. It was said behind his back that only 3 people in the world were not afraid of him. One was his wife, Helena, who was, paradoxically, a Bavarian but looked and dressed like a Berlinerin, or maybe a New Yorker. It was hard to imagine Helena Görner in a dirndl, her hair in pigtails munching on a Würstchen. Frau Gertrude Schröder, Görner's secretary, had been known to tell him no and to shout back at him when that was necessary in the performance of her duties. The third person who didn't hold Görner in fearful awe didn't have to. Herr Karl Wilhelm von und zu Gossinger was by far the principal stockholder of Gossinger Beteiligungsgesellschaft, GmbH. Görner worked for him, at least theoretically. Gossinger lived in the United States under the polite fiction that he was the Washington, D.C. correspondent of the Tageszeitung newspaper chain. There were 7, scattered over Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary, which constituted another holding of Gossinger Beteiligungsgesellschaft, GmbH. It was commonly believed that the heir to the Gossinger fortune seldom wrote anything but his signature on a corporate check drawn to his credit, and instead spent most of his time chasing movie stars, models, and other female prey in the beachside bars of Florida and California and in the après-ski lounges of Colorado and elsewhere. "I said it's been 769 fucking years, and they're still waiting for a fucking virgin," Görner repeated. "Yes, sir," Schmidt said, now sorry he had asked. "You do know the legend?" Görner challenged. Schmidt resisted the temptation to say, "Of course," in the hope that would end the conversation. Instead, afraid that Görner would demand to hear what the legend was, he said, "I'm not sure, Herr Görner." "Not sure?" Görner replied scornfully. "You either do or you don't." "The crooked steeples?" Schmidt asked, taking a chance. "Steeple singular," Görner corrected him, and then went on. "The church was built to honor Elizabeth of Hungary, 1207 to 1231. She was a daughter of King Andrew II of Hungary. He married her off at age 14 to Ludwig IV, one of whose descendants was Mad King Ludwig of Bavaria, who lost his throne because he became involved with an American actress whose name I can't at the moment recall, possibly because before this came up, I got into the wassail cup. Anyway, Ludwig IV, the presumably sane one, went off somewhere for God and Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire. While so nobly employed, he caught a